The Visual EQ here in GarageBand iOS is very cool. It lets you adjust your bass, your mids, and your treble frequencies, but it does have some limitations. It's only 3 bands, it doesn't allow you to do proper high pass or high shelf filtering, and you can't adjust the Q, which is how narrow or wide your EQ moves are. So if I was to tell you that there is a free alternative, a plugin that does have all of these features, you'd probably be interested. So in this video, I'm going to show you the free LCR5 EQ plugin. Let's go. Hi, my name is Pete, and this is Studio Live Today, where I help you create, record, and release your best music. And if you've been using GarageBand on your iPhone or your iPad, you'd be familiar with the Visual EQ. It's a very good way to adjust your bass, your mids, and your trebles. But as I mentioned in the opening, there are some limitations. So in this video, we're actually going to look at the LCR5, which is an alternative EQ plugin that we can use by using an audio unit plugin. If you want to learn about audio unit plugins, there's a video linked up there and also in the description. But what we can basically do is we can add in, if we tap on the edit plugins here, we can add in new plugins, and these are other applications that we can download from the App Store. So if you want to check this one out for yourself, head to the App Store. There's a link in the description. Download LCR5 to your iPhone or your iPad, and then follow along as we learn how to use this very cool EQ plugin. So once you've followed that link and you've downloaded LCR5, it'll automatically be put in your plugin list. And to access those, we tap on our mixer icon. It's in the top left on this phone. It could be in the top right on a smaller device. We tap on plugins and EQ. And now instead of selecting any of these default plugins, we're going to tap on edit, and then we're going to hit the plus button over here on the left. Now we can add in any of our standard GarageBand effects on the left here, but even cooler, if we tap on audio unit extensions, here are all of my third-party or AUV3 plugins that I've downloaded. So what we want to do is we want to scroll down and let's tap on LCR5, and there you go, it's added that as a plugin to our effects chain. Now the first thing I want to do is I'm going to tap edit, and I'm going to actually drag this down to put it right at the bottom of my chain and tap on done, because I want the EQ to be right at the end. And I'm also going to tap on the Visual EQ because thank you Visual EQ, you've served us well, but we're going to be using LCR5 for this particular track. To jump into the interface, we just tap on the little icon here next to LCR5, and here we are. This is our 5-band EQ or equalizer. Now, if you're new to music or you're new to using EQs, an equalizer or an EQ lets us adjust our different frequencies. So on the left here are our bass frequencies. We then have our mid frequencies in the middle here, and over here on the right, we have our treble frequencies. And we can adjust these by dragging up to get a boost or by pulling down to get a cut, and that is actually going to increase or decrease the volume at that particular frequency. So you can think of an EQ, in this case a 5-band EQ, as 5 separate volume knobs for your particular track. So you can turn it up and down at different frequencies, meaning if it's sounding okay but the bass is too loud, you can drop your bass down. If you want a little bit more treble, you can boost your treble up, and you can do everything in between. So that's the basics of an EQ. Now let's look at how we use LCR specifically here in GarageBand iOS. So you can use an EQ on any track you like, on your drums, your guitars, your bass, but for this example, we're going to use it on my vocals. So these are the lead vocals for my recent song called Goats. It's a punk song, so let's solo this track and let's hit play and take a listen. I find it hard to be okay. So it's a punk vocal that we're going to be working with here. So let's now tap on our mixer icon, or which is in the top left. It would be on the top right on some smaller devices again. And we're going to tap plugins and EQ. Now here it is where we've got LCR5 down the bottom. We're going to tap on that icon, and here we are in the interface. So let's now show you how we can create our own custom sound using the interface here in the LCR5 EQ. Now the interface is slightly unique and will take a little bit of getting used to, especially if you're used to the Visual EQ, but the basics are the same. So as we showed before, to select each individual one, we tap on them and they'll turn green. We can actually select, however, multiple points, and then if we drag, we're actually going to be dragging, making boosts and cut at 3 different or 5 different points. So if we tap again, they're going to go away, or if we just tap anywhere outside, they'll go back to blue. So you can see there, if we want to highlight our bass frequency, we just tap on that one. In the bottom right, we get our information panel. So at the moment, it's showing that it's set at 0.22 dB. So it's a slight cut there, and it's at 39.45 hertz. So just under that 40 hertz mark. So if we wanted to drop this down, we just grab it and slide it down. And you may need to grab it again, depending on the size of your device and how far you can do it. You may need to grab it a few times and just slide it down. But here you can see, this is what I was talking about before. We actually have a proper high pass or low cut filter. So if we tap on this one just to select it and look over here on the right, you can see we're down here at 88 hertz and we're right down at minus 24 dB. So we are getting really low levels. So this is going to cut out everything low. So that's your low rumbles. If there's trucks or buses going past, this can be a good way to make sure that you're not picking that up. So on a vocal track, sometimes doing something like this, a high pass or what we call a low cut filter means the same thing, just different language. So there you go. You can actually do that. And that's really, really handy. The other thing that we can actually do here is we can change the Q. So the Q is how narrow or wide this is. Now for our low one here, our low cut or our high pass, if we select that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap and hold with 2 fingers and spread the 2 fingers apart, and look what happens to our shape here. It goes quite extreme like that. So now we've got a very different Q on our curve there, and if we do the same again, we tap and we drag these together, you can see we can go all the way back to flat, and we can even invert it slightly to completely flatten it out. So you'll see there that little yellow line that goes around like a clock dial. That is what is telling us what our Q measurement is. So it's all very visual. It just takes a little while to get used to. So let's drop this back down and say we wanted to have this. In fact, we need to adjust our Q a little bit more around, tap it, spread it out. A little bit more like that. There we go. So there we've got a pretty standard sort of low pass filter on there. Let's now jump over to the right hand side and look at our highest frequency EQ move here. So we'll just, you can see here we can adjust this from the right to the left. So let's put this at something like about 3,500 hertz. And then if we bring this one up, what this is going to create is a high shelf. So this is what you'll usually use if you want a little bit of a treble boost, what we call giving a bit of air to a mix. You might use a high shelf. And again, we can use this as a shelf, as a proper shelf, as opposed to it just peaking and going all the way up. We can adjust the Q. If we do want to do something like that, we can use it like that and get a really aggressive upward shift there, but it's still using that high shelf at the end there. So that just means that we've got a lot more control over what we can do. And again, if we tap, it's just spreading our fingers apart or pinching them together to adjust how wide or how narrow that is. Now you're probably ahead of me on these ones, but the 3 that we have in the middle are our peak EQs. So with these, we can just select what frequency we want. So let's say we wanted our, oops, you can see there how easy it is to select 2 at once. So let's use this one. Let's line this up at around about 1,000 hertz. So there we are down the bottom right. We're looking at those green numbers, about 1,000 hertz. And let's say we wanted to cut this. We didn't like this frequency. What we can do is we can drop that down, and you can see it's quite a smooth move because our Q is set way down. Let's now tap with 2 fingers and drag apart. And look what we can do. We can get this much more surgical precision and actually cut out our sound and reduce the volume right around that frequency. So it means that we can actually create some really interesting and effective EQ curves here for our different instruments. So let's now, we'll hit done. And let's play back this vocal now and see if you can hear the difference between our EQ and our non-EQ. So we'll turn it off to start with and we'll hit play, and then I'll turn it back on and we'll take a listen. I find it hard to be okay with all the things that are happening in this world. So it's probably not the EQ curve I'd go with. I wanted to sort of use this to really emphasize that. But let's just throw some really aggressive changes here, and let's see if we can get this. So if we wanted this to be really trebly, let's put it all the way up there and hit play. And I find it harder day by day. So I wouldn't go with something like that. Let's bring it back down. But what we can actually do, we can do what we call sweeping for a different sound. So we can actually, if we just take one of these, and say we wanted to work on what frequency we want to cut, let's just bring that Q a little bit further in so it's not quite as drastic. So let's play back. And what we can do is move side to side and listen to what's happening in the sound.
All
the news that is fake, all the walls that they make, and there's one thing that I am sure of. Now, actually, the tactic most people use when they are doing this is to actually boost the frequency first. So let's just boost this one up. We'll adjust that cue to be a bit more narrow. Now I'm going to hit play and sweep this around and actually listen for a frequency I might want to remove, and then we can actually change this to a cut. So let's hit play. I find it harder day by day. All the news that is fake, all the walls that they... So there we are, around about there, around about that 1000 hertz. That seems to be a spot where we might actually benefit from cutting a bit of this frequency out. So let's drop that down there. What have we got there? If we tap it, look in the bottom right there, we're down about 6 dB here at right on 1000 hertz. So let's hit play now. They make, and there's one thing that I am sure of. So it just sounds a little bit more clear than what we had before. We're not getting that nasal frequency coming through. So we'll hit done here, and again we'll play it, and I'll turn the plugin off and on and just take a listen to the difference. So we're starting with it on. Goats have it easier than me. They don't have to work. They don't have to lift a finger. So yeah, I've probably not got it perfect there, but again, I just wanted to show you the power that we have here. You can come in here and you can use some real surgical precision to actually adjust all of these points and get a whole lot more going on here. Now, what's the catch, right? You're thinking free plugin, you're thinking 5 bands, you've got all these different options. Well, because it is an external plugin, a couple of things to keep in mind. It will use more processing power than your standard visual EQ. It is more likely to crash your phone or your iPad because you are using a third-party app, and there's 2 separate applications that you're running there. So that is things to keep in mind. If you came out here and you wanted to add it to every single track and EQ and do a whole bunch of EQ moves, you're going to find that your processing power is going to go down pretty fast. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you then share this project, the person you share it with needs to also have that same plugin installed. Now, if they don't, no problem. You can use the merge function, which I've showed plenty of times here, and I'll link to some videos up the top and down below so that you can merge this track back to a standard audio file with those EQ moves baked in to the actual audio. So there are some limitations there, but still for free, it's a great price, $0, £0, €0. You can jump in and grab this free EQ plugin here, the LCR5 EQ for iOS. And there you go, the LCR5 plugin, a very cool option for an EQ plugin here in GarageBand iOS. But I want to know from you, what plugins do you use and what recommendations do you have for me to check out next here on the channel? Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.